we talk resuscitation leadership around here. And, the past weekend, I've had a situation. I traveled to the Limpopo province, and there's something that I find very common. People always ask questions to say, how did we get here as a country? And when people refer this kind of questions, of course, they're looking at the state of the country, they're looking at the state of leadership in the country. And somehow they sort of feel like the country has not really done so well in the sense of, the kind of leadership that we have, and maybe some of the areas that they feel should have been dealt with in a different way or so. And the big question that they keep on asking, how did we get here? How did we get here? And over the weekend, I was just in Limpopo, and well, when you're visiting family, you see people and so forth. But what was so interesting for me over the weekend was just to take around and see the road that people always talk about, the 11 million kind of road that people speak about, which has peeled off, after 1 month of usage. And I sort of brought that into the context of how did we get there? Because if you look at the amount of money that was spent in that road, and that is not really the issue that we are going to talk about really today, the depth of that is bigger than that. But if you look at that road, and 11 million that was allocated for it, and when I looked at the piece of that road, I don't know whether there is another extension that that is still in the pipeline. But the one that I looked at and tried to just make sense, that road is less than 10 kilometers. In fact, by far less than 10 kilometers. And well, we talk about the peeling off and so forth. I understand, but 10 million over a road that is than 10 kilometers, it's such a challenge for one to understand. And I do know that, within the municipality, there are people who are working there, educated, uneducated, but there are people who are representing the communities that are affected by that road. And my question is, what has happened to the same people who are sitting at decision-making level, and they see the kind of, shoddy work that has been done on that particular road? A friend of mine was laughing at me, when we were just looking at the tires. He said, no, you must have actually gone into a pothole. And that was a fact, because it's potholes everywhere. And when he looked at it, he just pointed at some kind of mark that I was not really aware of, but it's a mark that happened. Truly, is the truth is that mark was not there. So before I went home, that's for sure. But now that I went there, now that I traveled in those, throughout those potholes, one can be able to detect some of those things. But to get back to the real question, how did we get there? We talk about a lot of things. This week, the president spoke on Sunday, and he spoke about a number of things. And when you take those things that he has spoken about, and you sort of juxtapose them with a number of other things that have been happening, bit by bit, the unemployment rate, the closure of companies, and increasing and piling up on such, and the petrol prices and things like that. Some of these things, those who are into economics will say, no, the president has nothing to do with that. But we also know that the exchange rates are also as a result of confidence that the international countries or the international organizations that are into monies and funding they look into that for them to have confidence that this country is well organized and things like that. Let's put that aside. But how did we get there? Because that is the most important thing. And I felt that I needed to sort of shed some light on perhaps some of the, and remove some of the scales that, within our eyes, we found ourselves in a situation where we can't see exactly how did we get to this extent. Because people are always saying, the last that we know was this country was doing very well. But within a short space of time, this country is no longer doing so well. And the question is, how did we get here? And one of the things that I want to just share with you tonight is that we did not get to this point because we were ignorant. We got to this point because, we trusted people. We trusted them because they looked like us. We trusted them because they were coming from, and they are still coming from, our communities. They speak our language. We believe in them. And ever since then, from the first democratic president, we believed in them because they understood the situations and the conditions where people live. So when we gave them the mandates year after year, term after term, we really trusted them. So we took our full trust and gave it to human beings who looked like us, human beings who understood our situations, human beings who have walked the journey that we have actually walked. And we gave them our trust. Now, you see, when you trust a human being who is fallible and who is prone to making mistakes, who is prone to be bought, who is prone to a lot more other things, that's where you go wrong. And I understand with us, we really did not have a choice because we were coming from a very disastrous situation where we were working with people that we could not trust. We were living and supervised by people that we could not trust, people who never associated with us. And those people, their agenda was different. But because we're coming from that era, we trusted those that we believed their agenda was real, was like an agenda of us. The second thing that we did, we sort of lived our aspirations through them. We aspired to live in the suburbs. We aspired to be great people and sit in parliaments. We aspired to control the country. We aspired to, because of our majority, we aspired to be the custodians of this country. And as a result of that, we lived our own aspirations through the voting system. But we lived those aspirations through them that we have actually put up there. So if it was a person who has been with us, who came from the same township, and because we all wanted to have houses and places of dwelling in the suburban areas, and when they go there and they buy those houses, and when they buy those beautiful cars, and they come back and they show off those kind of cars and everything else that they owned as a result of our vote, we felt associated with that because we trusted them and we believed in them. And when we saw them succeeding in politics, when we saw them succeeding in whatever organizations where they were deployed, we felt like it was us living that kind of life. So that sort of gave us a bit of hope. And as they were doing that, as they were living those aspirations, because they were living aspirations a bit far away and removed from where we were, a wedge was driven in between. Where for them, it was more about amassing more than what we have. It was more about getting more than they did not actually really deserve at that particular time. So you can see that when they lived the lives that we aspired for, we felt good, because now it's black people are in the suburban areas. Now black people are able to drive Maseratis, they're able to drive the latest Jaguars, the latest Mercedes-Benz. They represented our aspirations. And we could see that it was possible for a black man to live in the suburb. It was possible for a black man to have a white neighbor. It was possible for a black man to drive these latest makes of cars and all that. But because it was possible for them, we felt a little hope that it was also possible for us. But what we wanted was for them, in the process of enjoying those, but to be able to realize that they are part of us. So whatever they do, they must be thinking for us as well. And that was a dream. And that dream is not yet fulfilled. And chances are that dream may not really be fulfilled. Thirdly, when we gave them all these things, one way or another, we lowered our standards to their own. Now, here is the thing. Because they represent us. They live in the suburbs. Give us just a little bit, as long as they build an RDP house for us. So our standards were lowered. As long as they can give us NSFAS and it's the credit, long-term credit for each one of us to go and study, so that when we come back we can pay back. So our standards were lowered intentionally by ourselves, because we did not make enough demands for them to be able to work hard. We did not actually benchmark them in terms of, this is what we will call performance for you. So we relegated ourselves and we sort of benchmarked ourselves very low. That is why it's not so difficult that you find, even in parliament, someone who cannot actually read and write properly. That is why you find people in influential positions, but where they need strategic thinking. When you look at people who are suffering the most in our communities, it's people who have trusted human beings. It's people who have outsourced their thinking to the thinking of those that we trusted with our votes, the politicians. But have a look at this very, very closely. If we are to ask this question, if you were to answer this question, then we get here. Actually, if you look at it properly, it's simply because we decided to outsource our thinking, outsource our energies, outsource our agility, and we gave them to human beings, simply because they look like us, simply because they belong, they have the same membership as us, simply because they are people who look like us with the color of our skin, but yet they are incapable. So in that actual sense, we have given more power to people who really did not deserve the power. We have given more power to people who would not have performed any miracles to get us to where we wanted to be. And this is now. It's not a situation which we can look at and say we are so proud of. And many times I listen, if we had used our brains well, we could not have been worse. We trusted so much and we outsourced so much. And I think this is the opportunity for each one of us to start meditating and thinking about this whole thing, to say, where do we go from here? Instead of asking this question, how did we get here? The answer to that, it's very clear. We got here because we actually stopped thinking. We stopped working, and we gave them the power. Now, it is the time to answer. How do we get out of here? And this is going to be my next video. How do we get out of here? Thank you so much for joining me today. And of course, Mano Ramadwa, if you love what we have just spoken about, all you need to do is just like this video and like our channel, subscribe, and also do the right thing. Just go on and share this video. But most importantly, all you need to do is just visit my website as well, because there are goodies that we actually put on my website, www.manoramadwa. Mano spelled as M-A-A, manoramadwa.com. So www.manoramadwa.com. Thank you so much. See you next time.